Welcome to Spotlight, the interview show on RT. I'm Al Grinov, and today my guest on the program is Richard Stallman. The computer world is divided in two confronting camps with two totally different philosophies. On the one side are the corporations which sell programs and gain big bucks. On the other are the people who believe software must be free. The former obviously dominates the market, yet free software products are starting to beat commercial ones. How can this happen? Why isn't the market law always working properly in the software world? We're asking the number one person in the free software movement, a true computer genius who has always confronted businessmen like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. Spotlight gives you a unique opportunity to hear your questions answered directly by Richard Stallman, a programmer turned philosopher.
Richard Stallman says the purpose of his career is to campaign for users' rights. Back in the 70s, he was a prodigy programmer and a part of the newly born hacker community. He could have continued in a software developer career, but an attempt to introduce a totally free operating system made him a true philosopher. The launch of the GNU project kick-started the free software movement. It fights for running, changing and redistributing computer programs without charge. Thanks to Richard Stallman and his friends, most commercial software has free alternatives. Stallman himself lives an ascetic life, lectures and promotes his philosophy around the globe.
Hello, Richard. Welcome to the show, and thank you very much for being with us. Well, first of all, when you were listening to that intro, you said that it's a mistake to confront free software and commercial software, right?
Right.
Why?
Because these are two unrelated questions. A program is free or proprietary depending on whether the users control the program or the program controls the users. Whether the program is commercial or not, that's a totally different question. Mm-hmm. It's commercial if it's developed as part of a business. Mm-hmm. There are businesses that develop free software. And there are individuals that make proprietary software. It isn't necessarily commercial. Also, free software means free as in freedom. It's not a matter of price. Free software is often available gratis, but not necessarily. Mm-hmm. You can sell copies. You're free to sell copies. Mm-hmm. And proprietary software, non-free software, is sometimes gratis. Mm-hmm. For instance, Flash Player is gratis proprietary software. Mm-hmm. It's not free software, and it has malicious features. So it subjugates the users and abuses them, but it's gratis, if you like that.
So producing and working on free software can be a business. I mean,
yes, it is.
It can be a money-making.
People are paid to do this. Mm-hmm. Companies do this. Mm-hmm. There are people who have small businesses where they develop solutions for clients, and they improve as they go the free software that they use in these solutions.
I think you partly answered the question that we got on Facebook from Mr. Adrian Jowett, who asks, who can afford to work for free?
Well, actually, lots of people do. There are many people who volunteer for causes and many people who have hobbies. So developing free software is a sort of hobby for many people, and it's a political cause for many people. But the crucial thing is there is lots of free software. If somebody believes a simple-minded economic theory that says there can't be free software, well, that theory must be false. It's like someone who has a theory saying satellites can't stay up. Well, they do. Look up at the moon one day, and you realize satellites can stay up. So that theory must be wrong. Well, now, you might want to ask how people develop free software. That's an interesting question. But to say, I don't believe it could exist when it does exist, that's just a false belief.
Well, if God wanted people to fly, he would have given them wings, sure?
Well, there's no God, so it's not really a meaningful question. But basically, for software originally was frequently free back in the 1950s. As soon as there was more than one computer that was an identical model and that the same programs would run on, and there were various users doing things that sometimes had an overlap, they started sharing software between them. And free software was still common around 1970 when I entered the field. But during the 70s, it was driven out by user subjugating proprietary software. Mm-hmm. But I had the good fortune to work in a place where the software was free. So I experienced life in freedom. But then that community died in 1982 approximately, and I saw myself facing a life of proprietary software, and it was ugly, it was disgusting. So I said, I'm going to dedicate all my efforts to creating another free software community to replace the one that was gone.
Another question we got from Facebook came from Nick Elliott, and here's what he writes. What motivated you to pioneer the free software movement when everybody else thought this was insane?
Well, I had already...
And you're not a believer.
I had already experienced life in a free software community.
You just said that, yeah.
So I knew that it was possible and that it was a good way of life. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think that money could compensate for the ugliness of life that I would have with proprietary software. I didn't want to be subjugated, and I didn't want to subjugate others. In fact, it made me morally ashamed, the idea. It was morally wrong, in my view. So the only thing that was worth doing with my skill as a programmer was creating a free world.
Richard, you say, I quote, "It will take many steps and many years to reach a world in which it is normal for software users to have freedom," end quote. Do you think the existing economic system should be changed to help your dreams come true?
Or that's not necessary. The free software movement was started in a capitalist society and has always existed in a capitalist society. There's no incompatibility between free software and capitalism. Now, extreme capitalism, the empire of the corporations, which is what we have since the globalization and the unfair trade treaties of the 90s, that's a different story. I don't know if anything decent in society can coexist with extreme capitalism. Extreme capitalism means that in each area of life, the businesses interested in that area rule society, control the government, and in particular, the oil and fossil fuel companies control energy policy, and they are driving us towards the kind of disaster where we won't have food to eat. It was only a year and a half ago in Russia that the harvest burned up due to an extreme heat event. Of course, global heating makes those happen more frequently, as well as creating floods and droughts and many kinds of disasters. So we're heading for total disaster if we don't put an end to extreme capitalism and reestablish democracy. But this doesn't mean eliminating capitalism. Just to eliminate the empire of the corporations doesn't mean we stop having businesses. So we don't need to stop having businesses. We don't need to get rid of capitalism. Free software combines capitalist ideas and socialist ideas and anarchist ideas. It doesn't fit into any one of those camps.
Richard, another discussion that's going on in the internet, in the world in general, was sparkled by WikiLeaks. Do you think that the public knowledge, in-depth public knowledge of governmental secrets, diplomatic secrets, is good? Is it justified? Is there a line?
It's necessary.
Is there a line that should be drawn?
Especially now that our governments betray the citizens. When the empire of the corporations imposes its governments of occupation, these governments exist to keep the public under control of business. They may have democratic form, but they don't really carry out democracy.
Can I say that the best way to control the public is free software?
No, because
in the internet.
Free software doesn't control the public.
It does.
No, it's the opposite. Free software is software that the users control. In order for the users to have control over the programs they use and have control over the computing they do with it, they need certain freedoms. These 4 essential freedoms are the criterion for whether a program is free. If the users don't have control over the program, then the program controls the users. And of course, the developer controls the program, and that means that this non-free program is an instrument of power.
You know, what my dad always taught me, and I was raised in a capitalist society in England and France with my parents, he said, listen, as long as you can afford to buy things, you're free. But as soon as you start getting things for free, you're hooked.
But free software doesn't mean it's for free. So you've made a misunderstanding here. But in this case, he is assuming, your father was assuming that when you buy something, you control it.
Yeah.
And that used to be true. And often it still is true, but not with software. If you buy or even get gratis a copy of a proprietary program, you don't control what it does. It's designed frequently to mistreat you. It's very common for users of proprietary software to have malicious software.
Listen,
let me tell you some examples. Microsoft Windows has known malicious features. It has features to spy on the user, features to restrict the user. These are called digital handcuffs. And it has known backdoors with which Microsoft, for instance, can change anything remotely. macOS has known digital handcuffs to restrict the user. The recent Apple products, the iThings, these have known spy features, known digital handcuffs, the nastiest ever, and a known backdoor. Flash Player, which is gratis but not free software, has surveillance feature and digital handcuffs. Most cellular phones will transmit your location on remote command. That's a surveillance feature and a backdoor together.
The best thing to control you is your credit card. I mean,
well, exactly. Well, that's why I normally buy things only with cash.
Listen,
but the point is that non-free software, because a corporation, typically it's a corporation, has control over the users through this program, it uses that power to abuse them. It puts in intentional malicious features. How can we protect ourselves? Free software is the only known defense.
Says Richard Stallman, founder of the free software movement. Spotlight will be back shortly after a break, so stay with us. We'll continue in a minute or so.